Good morning and happy Sabbath, everyone. I got the invitation to speak to you today close to midnight last night when I mentioned to my good friend, Pastor Jeb, that we hope um, to visit just to unwind. And this is our first Sabbath without a direct church to pastor with. Um, I've been a pastor for close to 25 years in the church, different churches, different culture. Um, and this is the first Sabbath that we don't have the church of our own to pastor with, Brother Tommy. Um, so I told Pastor Jeb maybe we can come and just unwind because we have friends in your area, in this church, in this community. Um, Dr. Jeff, Theo, and Mags, been a friend of ours since college. Um, he was my best man when I got married. We got ordained together in the ministry, and I was his best man when he got married because he doesn't have any other choice. Pastor Erwin and Sister Marie, good friends of ours since college days. Pastor Tommy, we did a trip together not too long ago, about 12 months or 16 months ago. We went to the Philippines together, and that was a wonderful experience. And your pastor, we've been friends since college as well, and his wife, Ellen. And I know Pastor Jeb, he's very passionate about reaching the community, about making relevant to the community, and he's passionate about evangelism. He likes to go out and preach. He likes to do mission trip and reach the people, especially those who have not been reached as well yet. And so I'm grateful for this privilege. And just like he mentioned about, actually started Monday over at the conference office to support Pastor Jim Lawrence, if you know him. He is our ministerial director at the conference. They asked me to help them out with different kind of ministries. So I'm going to share you as to why they invited me. About 65% of our pastors, including me, the pastors over here, and your pastor, 65%, that is very alarming, are going through with different kind of discouragement that their members don't know. 65% of pastors are going through some kind of family matters, problems. Just like all of us, just like simple family situation, but for pastors, since they are called into this ministry, does not necessarily mean that their children are. That's why we need also to pray for them, their family, their children especially. That is very alarming rate of percentage of ratio. 65% of our pastors are going through different kind of discouragement and problems. And I am privileged that the church that we pastored not too long ago, well, just last Sabbath, my farewell Sabbath preaching, we shared, and we have a prayer coordinator in the church. I told her that anytime you feel led by the Spirit to pray for me or to pray, even in the middle of my preaching, just raise your hand and wave and then tell me, Pastor, can I pray for you right now? So I gave her that permission. So she knows, even in I'm in the middle of the board meeting or in the middle of the church business meeting, or in the middle of my preaching, as soon as she waves, raise her hand, and ask me to stop for short minute or second and pray for me. That's why we need prayer warriors. And those prayer warriors, make sure to remember your pastor, because they too are going to some challenges. One more thing, 80% of the pastors will not retire as a pastor. Isn't that alarming? 80% of pastors will not retire. Some point in the middle of their career, they will quit because of discouragement. Why I'm saying this, because it's very important for us to remember and pray for our pastors. So that's why I appreciate Pastor Jeb and his family, the sacrifice that they've been doing and coming here to be with you, to serve with you. It's because of their passion to serve. So I chose a topic. It's not small but deadly, but it's actually a question mark at the end, which is, do you ever get discouraged? Yes? Some of you may not, but I do. I do get discouraged because I am included in those 65% of pastors that somehow along the way they feel discouraged. There's actually a Bible character in the Old Testament. His name is Haggai. At least that's how some folks pronounce. I pronounce it in my own local dialect, Haggai. You know him, right? Do you know Haggai? Haggai is one of the least read books in the Bible. So I decided to share a bit about Haggai today. Now, in the next 10 or 15 minutes of our time together is a little boring history about Haggai, and then the last 10 minutes is the implication for us that why are we going to talk about Haggai today? As to why we are going to discuss the life of Haggai. You see, the book of Haggai is the second shortest book in the Old Testament. Only Obadiah is the shortest. You see, the literary style of Haggai is simple and direct. The context of the book is a report of 4 messages by seemingly insignificant prophet whose ministry was apparently of limited duration. Haggai referred to himself simply in his book as the prophet Haggai in chapter 1, verse 1. There's a theme in his book. To those of you who have read the book of Haggai, very short. One common theme of Haggai is the same common theme that our pastors go through as well. What is that? Discouragement. Discouragement is the theme of this passage, from which we get the title of our sermon today, Do You Ever Get Discouraged? You all have answered yes, including me. The prophet Haggai and the people of Israel, or in Israel, during the time of Haggai, are disappointed and discouraged. Stay with me. I'm going to explain a bit. So allow me to give you a little background, historical background of this story. Year 500 586 BC, the Babylonians had invaded Israel. You know the story. They had taken the people away from Babylon as captives. The Babylonians had destroyed Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. Some Bible scholars believe his reference of the Solomonic temple in Haggai chapter 2 verse 3 shows that he was one of the exiles who saw the temple being destroyed in 586 BC. After 50 years, still with me? Some of the people were allowed to return to Israel. 50 years after, they were allowed to go back and see what Israel looks like. When they arrive, they began the process of rebuilding the temple. The work stopped after just a short time because of opposition from the Samaritans. For 16 years, the temple remained unfinished. Then, God raised up the prophet Haggai to call the people back to their tasks of rebuilding the temple. All right? The people responded to the voice of God's men and they began to build again. But after only a month in their work, they became discouraged. And again, they wanted to quit. It's a very familiar story. That when someone lead the people and say, let's go do evangelism. And some folks would say, oh, we've done that before. It's not effective in this community. That instead of posing encouragement that perhaps let's do a different method, then it can perceive and interpreted to be as a discouragement. That's what happened to them. They were disappointed by the temple that they were building, and they were discouraged in the work that they were doing. Haggai writes and challenges them and encourages them to carry on. That is the message of Haggai. And so I think we could all use today, and I thank God for this little book of Haggai, that if you and I are discouraged or disappointed or about to stop of doing something, then read this book once again. So I want to take a few moments to look into the words Haggai shared with Israel during their time of discouragement and disappointment. Question is, what caused their disappointment or discouragement? What caused their discouragement? About a year ago, my wife Genevieve and I, we said, you know what? Let's go drive to Willits. It's about a year ago. So we drove from Reading. That's our last assignment. We drove from Reading to Willits. And we spent a little time with our friends, Dr. Jeff and Mags, because I was so discouraged to the point of quitting. I was. Actually, yesterday, I looked at again the letter I wrote. I actually wrote my resignation letter. And I did not delete it. It's still there. If you want to read it, I can show you with a cause. With a cause. Because that letter is very highly emotional. I pour out my heart in that letter, Brother Tommy. And so I was reading it again. I addressed it to the conference president and the conference executive secretary, which is Pastor Mark Woodson and Jose Marin. And I wrote the letter. It's about 3 or 4 paragraphs. I was so discouraged. I wrote this letter of resignation to the point of I want to quit now. So I said, before sending this letter, let's go drive to Willits. We got here close to around midnight. That day, I still remember that. My good friend Jeff knows what's going on. So they waited for us. When we got there, he didn't even say a word. He just let me cry. He just let me cry. Because I was discouraged. I'm about to send this letter of resignation. And then, after a moment of time that he gave me that moment to just cry out my heart, in the afternoon, I texted Pastor Jose Marin. I said, I'm going to send you my resignation letter tomorrow. When Pastor Marin saw that text, he called me right away. Don't, he said. Don't you ever send that letter to me. If you believe that God called you to do something, then speak to Him first. Speak to God first. So I created a message box and put it right away, attached the letter, gave a little introduction of it and the reason why, and then I'm about to to click the send button. But then, it dawned to me, have you prayed yet? Talked to God silently yet? So I told my wife, Genevieve, I'm going to spend time alone in the RV. We have a little RV parked next to our house. And I probably spent about 3 nights there, alone, by myself. Just pray. Because I was so discouraged of what's happening. And it seems to me that no matter what I do and what I say in the church board, or in the team leadership that I have, they actually don't understand. Don't get me wrong, okay? I'm not trying to paint a picture here that they don't, but they do. It's just my own interpretation, my own dealings, my discouragement, the emotion that I call now that the enemy took advantage with. But those are real. I feel them. I cried about them. You see, the reasons for their disappointment and discouragement are many. And most of them revolve around a bad memory. All right? Memory can be a blessing or can be a curse. The Jews were guilty of focusing on the negative and forgetting all about the positive happened to them in the past. Just like the Jews, bad memories can hinder a bright future. That's exactly what's going on in me back then. Before Haggai gave a solution to the people's discouragement or disappointment, God told Haggai to ask 3 questions to ask the people of Israel. First question is, who of you saw this house in its former glory? Second question was, how does it look to you now? Third question was, does it not seem to you like nothing? And in chapter 1, verse 3 of the book of Haggai, ask the question, who of you saw this house in its former glory. Haggai prophesied in about 520 BC. The temple was destroyed in 586 BC. Hence, it had been about 66 years since Solomon's temple had been destroyed, right? Certainly, there were some folks among the people who had seen the first temple and the one built by Solomon, and they remember its glory, its gold-covered walls. They said it's contained about $400 billion worth of gold. Its splendor, its size, and its breathtaking beauty. They recalled the glory days when the Shekinah glory of God filled the temple and the house of God echoed with his praises. The same people look at the temple that they were building now, and it seemed to be an embarrassment to them. It seemed so small, so shabby compared to the wonderful temple that was destroyed by King Nebuchadnezzar. I call him King Nebu. These people look back and they remembered the past. Remembering the past is not always a bad thing. The problem was, listen to me now, that when you look back and remember the past, the problem is this: they choose to live in the past. And that is never good. All they could consider now is how things used to be. They lost interest in how things were at present. You see, can I be vulnerable a little bit here? Well, I guess I already did, right? I joined the church for a little over 40 years now. And I am the one, maybe the first to admit, that the church of 2025 is not the same as the church of the 1980. Correct? Many things have changed in the last 40 years. Some of you have been around longer maybe than me, and you have seen many changes in the church. Sometimes the people are tied from the past that they have no interest about the future. I'm not saying that's true in Willits, but that's just my general observation. They want things the way they used to be. And they have no interest about the things that they are now. That's why I said earlier, memory can be good, but memory can also be bad. Memory is a good thing if you remember the right things. The right things. Right? The other day I called my dad. He's about what? He just turned 78. And I called him on his birthday. That was 2 Fridays ago. And I asked him, Dad, how old are you now? And my dad says, 38. It pains my heart to see my dad's memory starting to diminish. One thing I'm proud of, he still remembers me. That I'm his only son. I love him. So I call him on his birthday. So no matter how he will say to me how old he was, it doesn't matter. Because we remember together the good things, not the bad things. That's why memory is a good thing. And then, verses 4 to 5. We're almost done. God reminded the people about what they are forgetting. That God was with them in the past. Amen? God was there when they crossed the Red Sea. God was the author of all the great miracles that decorated Israel's past. God has always been with them. God was there during the glory days of Solomon's temple. God has always been there. God was still remember the promises and covenant He made with them 900 years ago. Because God was standing by every promise He had ever made to His people. Amen? God is the same from yesterday. God is the same today. And God will never change tomorrow. He will be the same. He will always be there for you and for me. Do you ever get discouraged? Yes. But remember, God is there with you. Do you ever get discouraged about the church? Oh, yes. But remember, God is there with you. Do you ever get discouraged about your family situations? Oh, yes. Remember, God is there with you. Do you ever get discouraged about your health? Oh, yes. Remember, folks, God is there with you. God was standing by every promise He had made or ever made to His people. September 5, 1886. When was that again? September 5, 1886. Swindoll Leadership Library posted this, and I quote, "The enemy is always doing his utmost to break the work of God." Is that true? He continues. He hindered the Jews from building the temple. Yes. And today he endeavors to hinder the people of God from spreading the love of God. End of quote. Right? Whew, that's powerful. You see, the enemy's only design, I can even mention his name. I'll just call him enemy. The enemy's only design is to hurt the cause of God, to do his tricky work. He has many weapons in his closet. He may at one time use greed, another time use anger, another time he use hatred or false accusation. That's the enemy's job. Still another time, the enemy use desires or temptations or revenge. But all of these weapons, none is sharper than the one called discouragement. If only he can get the people of God to despair over their efforts, then his battle is already won. Is that true? Very true. A story was told. It was advertised that the devil was only going to put his tools up for sale. On the date of the sale, the tools were placed for public inspection, each being marked with its sale price. The tools were lined up on files and specific names on them. Hatred, one of his tools. Envy, one of his tools. Jealousy, doubt, lying, pride, and so on. Laid apart from the rest of the pile was a harmless looking tool, well worn and priced very high. The name of the tool? asked one of the buyers. Oh, said the enemy, that's discouragement. Why have you priced it so high? Well, because it's more useful to me than the others. I can pry open and get inside a person's heart with that one when I cannot get near him or with the other tools. Now, once I get inside, I can make that person do what I choose. It's a bad-worn tool because I use it on almost everyone, since few people know it belongs to me, the devil says. The devil's price for discouragement was so high. He never sold it. It's still a major tool that he uses every day. And he still uses it on God's people today. He uses that tool for the pastors. He uses that tool for pastor's family. I hope that he will never use that tool for our village brothers and sisters. Do you ever get discouraged? Oh yes. Remember, folks, God is there. God says, my spirit remains among you. God said, I am still here, just like I have always been. Think about it. What the Lord is saying here is this. He's saying, Abraham is gone. Jacob is gone. Moses is gone. David is gone. Solomon is gone. The first temple is gone. Do you ever get discouraged? God says, I am still here. Brothers and sisters, when that moment comes, because it will, a lot of times, in the church, in your family, at your workplace, everywhere you go, the word discouragement will show up. But when it does, I want you all to remember, God is there as well.